Welcome to this episode of the Structural Engineering Channel, a podcast focused on helping structural engineering professionals stay up to date on technical trends in the field and to help them succeed in their careers and lives. In this episode, we'll be talking to Damon Ho, a segment market manager at Simpson Strong-Tie, about how getting an MBA can help you in your engineering career. I'm your co-host, Matt Picardal.
And I'm your co-host, Rachel Holland. Now let's jump into our conversation of the week with Damon.
This episode of the Structural Engineering Channel is brought to you by PPI, a leader in engineering exam prep for the PE structural exam. PPI provides expert prep courses and study resources designed to help you pass the PE structural exam the first time. PPI's PE structural course is fully updated and taught with October 2021 code references and includes new editions of their PE structural books. PPI's live online courses include hours of lectures, problem-solving demonstrations, exam strategy sessions, office hours, and a passing guarantee. When you take a live online course, PPI guarantees you will pass, or you can take the on-demand course for free. PPI has helped engineers achieve their licensing goals since 1975. Check out PPI today at PPI2pass.com to see all of the resources available for PE structural exam prep. Again, that's PPI2pass.com.
Hi, Damon. Welcome to the show. We're so happy to have you here. Can you introduce yourself and just let the audience, the listeners, know a little bit about what you do on a daily basis?
Yeah, thank you for having me on the show. My name is Damon Ho. I am currently the product manager for Simpson Strong-Tie. I work with various departments to help develop, launch, and manage the Strong Frame and the Strong Wall product line. So the Strong Frame and the Strong Wall product line are part of the Simpson Strong-Tie's lateral systems. They are the components that are commonly used for resisting your wind loads and your seismic lateral loads in a building.
I know you had a pretty interesting career path as well. Could you kind of explain how you went into engineering and then more into where you ended up in your career? Maybe, like engineering and then all the other things. I know you got your MBA too, so maybe going through your career path a little bit.
Yeah, I would say that my career path, like you mentioned, is a little bit somewhat unusual or colorful, I like to say. Getting into engineering, as I was growing up, I had a number of interests. And in junior high, I got to take a technical drawing class, and I found that I had a knack for understanding and creating technical drawings. And I started off essentially as my journey to become an engineer. I got my undergraduate. After I got my undergraduate, I needed a convenient way to avoid grown-up responsibilities. So one of my mentor at the time encouraged me to take the path less traveled. So I took his advice and traveled to New Zealand to get my master's from University Canterbury. And then after New Zealand, I ended up back at Cal Poly San Luis Obispo, where I got my undergraduate. And there I split my time between teaching at Cal Poly and working part-time for a local engineering office. And then the MBA essentially became a natural progression since I was already back at Cal Poly for the second time, and the program was conveniently offered, and I had the flexibility to take on that new knowledge.
So that's about the time when you went back to Cal Poly. That's when I actually met you for the first time, Damon. And I think that you being in that MBA program is something that sort of put that seed in my head about going to get your MBA as an engineer and how you could kind of do both. So I thank you for that. I don't know if you know that, but that kind of planted the seed for me. What about in terms of getting that MBA? Do you think that it's helped your engineering career? And since you've sort of shifted away from engineering, do you think that that's been sort of like do you think it played a critical role, or how did it affect your career path?
Yeah, I would say that the MBA provided that new provided new skill sets and being able to interact with other people outside of engineering, which is what I knew at the time, really helped broaden and let me realize how big the world and how big the opportunity is out there. And so some of the new concepts that I picked up that were very impressionable for me with the MBA experience was, there were several, but one was marketing and the other is organizational behavior. And so those were the really interesting new concepts that actually does have some technical merit behind it. And it's just that as engineers, we just kind of put that in the category of, well, that's very liberal artsy, but there's actually a lot of technical merit behind those concepts that I naturally gravitated to just because I had the technical background to begin with. I would say that for some engineers, it can be a great complement because you're able to essentially learn a new language that you can apply your engineer skill set and engineering concept to. I would say that there are a lot of engineers that have, I would say, I don't know if it's easier, but that can transition and hop into a MBA program a lot easier than somebody with a business undergraduate trying to hop into, let's say, an engineering, more technical background. So, yeah, for me personally, it's helped me to pick up that language, understanding these additional concepts that now I get to apply. I would say if you're in that field right now, in the engineering field, in some environments, in some offices, you will eventually get those opportunity as you progress in your career advancement. It's just at the time, it was a convenient way for me to, again, delay me being a grown up, and it was a convenient excuse to continue with my education and avoid that commitment of finding a quote unquote real job. But I would say that in many cases, my path and it would be very different. Otherwise, that may just be just as fruitful or fulfilling. It just happened to be my progression.
So basically, you're just avoiding adulting. That's the sum of that.
Adulting and then getting as far away as possible. When my mom heard New Zealand, she just about had a heart attack.
Yeah, well, I know that's well, my professors always said in terms of like getting all of the degrees and all those things is it may take more time, but once you get it, it's no one can take that away from you, and you can take it with you for the rest of your career. You may have a later start in your career, but once you get those degrees, that's it. You got it, and you don't have to worry about it. Kind of like taking your exams, engineering exams. Once you get it out of the way, you can move forward.
Yeah, absolutely.
And Damon, go ahead.
So I would say that to that these degrees, though, it's not my quote. I can't take credit for it, but they're pieces of paper on the wall until you do something with it.
And in terms of for getting that MBA, I'm trying to think of it from an engineer's perspective. I guess what are the benefits of getting an MBA, and what are those MBA classes like? Is it, I don't know, like you were saying, there's some technical merit stuff, but is it from an engineering student, how is it different, and what are the benefits of getting an MBA? Yeah.
Yeah. So my experience with Cal Poly, the MBA classes, they're different, of course. A lot of times these are taking place in lecture halls and some of the more common classes. But there are some of the smaller classes, the interaction is similar to engineering. It's what's perhaps different is in that environment, you'll tend to interact with more people that have various different backgrounds. It's not as much homogenized when you have a class full of engineers versus a class full of business majors that are also focusing on various other aspects under the umbrella of business. So, for example, folks from finance, folks from marketing, even production, organizational behavior. Those are folks with various different backgrounds, and those discussions are what really are the value, that being able to interact with folks with various different viewpoints and backgrounds.
Yeah, that's definitely something, like just the diversity that comes into the cohorts. You just get to hear so many different perspectives on different types of businesses and how things apply and don't apply. And yeah, it's definitely interesting.
Yeah. And in the work environment, that certainly helps with having the experience of hearing different points of view and not so much the black and white from engineering. Where, hey, 2 plus 2 is not going to equal 5 or 6, and but that's a slightly different rule set, right, for the MBA environment.
Yeah, that's how the business works nowadays, especially with the world becoming smaller and smaller with all of our communications. You got to take into account all those different perspectives and backgrounds.
Yeah.
So, Damon, another question for you. When you're choosing a career in engineering, knowing what you like and what you're passionate about is important, but equally so, I think knowing what you're maybe not interested in or what you're not passionate about is just as important, right? So how do you know, like, how did you know personally which engineering discipline was right for you? Like, do you have any like, based on your experience, what would be your sort of advice to somebody else trying to figure out which discipline they maybe want to go into?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. Matt, I don't know if the answer is going to help engineers, probably not. But I didn't know, and it took a long time for me to flounder around and float around to figure out what my likes and dislikes are. And so I would say, speaking to engineers or engineering students who may have doubts or who don't know, what I can share is what the department head at the time when I was graduating from Cal Poly said to me, which is, it's okay if you don't know. You have another 20 years to figure it out. And so I genuinely would say that it probably took me about 10 years to figure out. That's, again, my unique path. Um, it, it the journey, though, for me was that even though I didn't know, or if I wasn't happy with where I was, um, I had the positive attitude of knowing and framing that mindset that what I'm doing right now is a building block for something further on down the line. And so while you may not enjoy what you do 100% at the time, you want to keep in mind that those become your building blocks of finding happiness later on down the line, because yeah, just as important of obviously knowing what you like is knowing what you don't like. And it may be a very simplified analogy, but it's sometimes you can kind of relate that to dating a new person. You don't know what
I
you're
was
going
just
to
thinking
like
that.
and what you don't like about that person until you know both hop in and you have that trust, and you work through some of those challenges in a relationship, and you know you're going to come to a point where hey, you can find something that you can move on to, or you agree to disagree and you find new things, um, and that's I think really important in a work environment, that I like to add, which is if there's something that is just really not calling to you, um, I suppose I'm fortunate that the office or the company that I work for, you can express that, and you can work with your manager to have that communication and have that dialogue, because um, there might be something else that is of interest to you that they can find a place for um, for you in that office.
Yeah, thanks, Damon. And I think that does help engineers, because I know, especially with people that are engineers in their careers right now, but even with engineering students, they think they need to have things figured out. That's just not the case. How can you have things figured out if you haven't even worked an internship, or even all you know how to do is take classes? So of course you're not gonna figure it out. And yeah, internships, getting jobs, and working those things, that's when you'll figure it out. And even then, you'll still be figuring it out throughout your career. Things change, circumstances change, interests change. So it's like you said, just like the building blocks. You'll figure out what you like, and maybe it'll change over time. But I think that's the important thing, is you're not going to have it figured out, and that's completely okay. No, no one
Yes,
really
it's
knows.
yeah, completely okay. And when I was facing the imminent graduation, getting kicked out of school there, after my last quarter, that was one of the more scary, um, maybe time, was just the unknown, right? I mean, just because uh, I suppose I was fortunate that there were options, and sometimes options can be good, and sometimes they can be paralyzing, just because you then have three or four different potential career paths that you think that you're going to need to commit to. And as engineers, we have that propensity of, okay, what's the right answer? And the right answer is just make a decision and move forward. That there's no such thing as a wrong answer in a career path. Again, you have a lot of time ahead of you to get that experience, learn and learn and cherish and understand those building blocks, and they become your, stepping stones to just elevate you later on.
Yeah, I think I love that you refer to it as a building block, because it's like even if you're not enjoying it, right? Learning what you don't enjoy and being okay to admit that to yourself, saying like that's not something that I particularly like, but this other thing that was part of this job I do like. So I wonder what I could take from this to go to the next phase. And it's never a waste of time. You're always learning something and you just keep building.
Right. That's a great way to put it, Rachel, is that it's not a waste of time. I don't, I spent another 7 or 8 years back in San Luis Obispo, and I absolutely do not think that that was a waste of my time, because many of my other friends and colleagues, in that time period have advanced so much further from what they're doing in their career path. Absolutely, I do not see that the 8 years, eight additional years I stayed in San Luis Obispo after I graduated, to figure out what my likes and dislikes are, was I don't see that as a wasted time. It definitely was a build. They were very important building blocks for me, and so it comes back to your frame of mind, your mindset, and just having those positive mindset. I think that that's really important, because a lot of folks that I talk to, or some folks that I talk to, they're not happy and they don't know what to do about it, and it just it turns into this vicious cycle of just, I I don't like what I'm doing, and I don't know what to do about it, or I don't know how to communicate, and then they end up leaving the field, where they might pursue something different, um, but at the same time, um, the question would be, well, where can the person be if they had a different attitude, or take the uncomfortable step of having that uncomfortable conversation with their manager, in just being genuine about, hey, what are my likes and dislikes are, and then seeing if there's ways that they can work with the managers. And those are uncomfortable and very very rare discussions that come up, and hence it's easy to just kind of sit there and be quiet and dwell on dwell on the negatives, or it just feed that negativity, is not as productive for career development.
Yeah, definitely asking yourself what your interests are and communicating that hopefully to your managers, so there can be some type of workshop or some discussion. So maybe it's not just you figuring out, but hopefully your managers helping you figure those things out in your career too, since it's always progressing. And I know you're also a big proponent of saying yes to opportunities in your career. Can you go a little more into that and why you think that's important?
Yeah. With new opportunities, there are the uncomfortable unknowns and uncomfortable challenges. Um, and for me, I've learned to embrace those, because I realized that those challenges and those uncomfortable situations are when I get to learn the most. And for me, I continue to enjoy learning. I feel that, again, those are just adding to those building blocks that I mentioned earlier. And so being being a person in that meeting when there's questions about, hey, who can help or what are some of the ideas, you know, to solve a puzzle. I like to refer to these challenges as puzzles. You know, how do we solve this puzzle, this next puzzle that, you know, we're working on? Not being afraid to step into the limelight and step into the picture of offering ideas and willing to take those on. So it's a lot, folks. You know, for when there's an issue or if there's a problem, it's very easy for that group setting to point out the things that are wrong. It's harder than to think about how you can improve or what are the things that can make it better. And I would say those new challenges or the new opportunities come up from those contributions when you are, you know, in a room with a group of folks trying to figure things out and are willing to offer solutions rather than just pointing out what's wrong. Instead of that, I encourage folks to have both, right? Don't complain about what's wrong if you're not going to help and contribute by offering some type of solution to it.
Definitely. Earlier, Damon, you referred to a mentor that suggested you had 20 years to figure out, you know, which discipline. Do you currently have any mentors? Are you mentee, or do you have any mentees? Like, why do you think it's so important to have a mentor as you make your way through your career?
Yeah, no. Again, I was fortunate enough to have these great mentors who helped me throughout my journey. I think that they're important because in many ways they're standing on their own building blocks, and their vision and their view is a very different perspective. I like using the analogy of hiking up a hill. You know, for folks who have been in the industry, they have been on that journey and on that trail a lot longer than you have. And so their viewpoint and their vantage point going up the hill in many ways are a little bit more vast compared to somebody who's just starting out on the trail. And it's harder, it's hard to see, you can't see what's around the corner, or you know, how much further it is to the next crest or the next rest stop. And that's where those mentors come in to help provide those guidance and you know, give you at least a picture or a vision of what they see and their perspective that they can share with you.
That's a great analogy. It's oh yeah, I was just going to chime in, Rachel, about that, but you can go ahead.
I was going to ask, do you currently have any mentors that you work with on a regular basis, or are you working with any mentees on a regular basis, or does it tend to be a little bit more like relaxed kind of style?
Yeah, I would say that it tends to be a little bit more relaxed. What, you know, I would say that my previous, we've been going through some shuffling with some organization here, but I would say my, you know, previous boss, I really admire his the way that he leads a group of product managers, and I, you know, sit there quietly taking mental notes on how he interacts with his peers, and as well as working across various different departments, and just silently taking mental notes on
Yeah.
what I see, and what I value, the way that he interacts, and try and maybe perhaps not as good, but emulate some of those qualities when I'm talking to the departments and the folks that I work with.
That's excellent.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think it's really important because I like that analogy like that you said, you're climbing a mountain or on a hike. Yeah, you can do it by yourself, but having a guide that's already climbed it or hiked it, it's so much more easier and less treacherous, and you'll probably save years of failed lessons when you have someone that whether it's a direct mentor mentee relationship, or like you were saying, you can look up to some people and uh, realize that they're really skillful and try to emulate that too. I think that's really important because, yeah, I think most of us don't get to where we are in our careers without some type of guidance or mentorship, or just having people support us throughout our careers.
Yeah, no, I funny thing, not work related, but on a personal level, I would say that my wife has been a huge part of helping me to balance out my life, where she's the planner, and she's the fun person. She's definitely in charge of the social calendar, and reminds me that it's okay to take vacation.
Yeah, because it needs that balance. I think knowing what type of person you are, but knowing that, yeah, it'd be nice to have that support to balance it out in terms of if you're the type of person that works a lot. I tend to be that at times, but having that support there to be go, let's go have some drinks, or let's stop working for a bit. It's nice to have that because, like you were saying, you need that balance.
Definitely, yeah.
And to end off here, Damon, do you have any final piece of career advice for structural engineers out there?
Um, I Yeah, I mean, I would kind of go back and just emphasize that having a positive attitude just goes a long way. That's how, for me, how I survived all these years, with having the mindset that having a positive attitude is having the point of view of knowing that there's opportunities just right around the corner. And that's what kept me going. That honestly, that's what has really helped me move along, in my career development, career path, is just having that positive attitude, and knowing that there's opportunities just right around the corner.
I love that. I think we could have a whole podcast on having positive outlook on life and how it can get you through things. But well, thank you for that, Damon. We really appreciate you joining us on this podcast today, and for your time and all of your words of wisdom.
All right. Well, thank you.
Thanks, Damon.
I hope you enjoyed the episode today. We'd love to hear your feedback, comments, and/or questions. To leave them, please visit structuralengineeringchannel.com. There you will find a summary of the key points discussed in today's episode, which is episode number 94. Don't forget to subscribe to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your podcasts. Until next time, we wish you the best in all of your structural engineering endeavors.